All right. Hey, everyone. It is Friday, September 3rd, 2021. Today, we're going to have just a really interesting, fun end of the week conversation and learn all about stoner cats and also some of the theses behind Sound Ventures as to how they are approaching the NFT, DeFi, crypto markets. So we're honored here to have two guests. We have Lisa Sterbakov, who is a partner at Orchard Farm Productions, also executive producer of Stoner Cats. And then we've got Maaria Bajwa, who is principal at Sound Ventures, and also very involved here in Stoner Cats as well. So we're going to learn all about Stoner Cats, which is an animated adult series about cats that are stoned. And it's got a lot of big names involved with it, including our very own Vitalik, the founder of Ethereum. So anyways, Maaria, Lisa, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
We're doing good. Great. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And same thing as always. I talked to them for like 30 minutes before this, and then for some reason I choose to always ask, how are you doing? Oh, yes. We didn't just get to know each other for the last 30 minutes. Let's start with some of the basics. Everybody wants to know where Stoner Cats came from, but I think it originates with, of course, your background. So would either of you be comfortable telling us a bit about just your background and how you arrived working on Stoner Cats?
For sure. I can start because I think this project actually started with the Hollywood side of this. So I am Mila's partner in Orchard Farm Productions, and we've been working together for 6 or 7 years, have many television shows and movies in development and production. And we had this fun animated show that we couldn't get through on the Hollywood side. And so we thought, you know what if there's an opportunity here to do this as an NFT? And our first call was to Maaria, because she knows she's a massive NFT holder herself, and knows everything about the space. And so she's the one who got us in this space in a great way.
Awesome. And Maaria, maybe you can take us from there, a little bit about the work you've been doing with Sound Ventures, and I guess maybe that leads into the origins of Stoner Cats, where the idea came from.
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined the Sound investment team 4.5 years ago. We're an early stage generalist venture fund, so we invest sort of in consumer companies, enterprise companies, typically Series A, Series B, and Series C. And I joined them 4.5 years ago, and then when I joined, it was soon after, it was the ICO boom and bust. So I spent a lot of my time in crypto, looking at all of the protocols, seeing if there were investment opportunities for us. And at the time, it was really interesting. There were so many incredible projects being built, but the challenge was that, as fiduciaries, we have investors, we have LPs that we manage capital for, and we had no idea how to hold tokens securely. Because at the time, Bitcoin was BitGo was one of the only custodians, and the only token, or the only assets that they could custody was Bitcoin. So we ended up not investing in any of the protocols, but through that, I had just spent a ton of time in the space, love the ecosystem, love what people are building. And then about 6 months ago, we raised a dedicated blockchain vehicle. And so I'm spearheading all of our efforts on that. That includes, that we're incubating companies, we're investing in pre-seed, seed, Series A companies, cross NFTs, DeFi, and what we kind of call core infrastructure. And so through that, Lisa and Mila had this show that they wanted to make called Stoner Cats, but they couldn't find a traditional studio that would want to make it because it had cannabis content. And the opportunities that they had, they weren't the right ones for the creators, right? They were opportunities where the studio was going to, buy the property, and then they were going to control the content that was created. And these creators, the story is really important to them. So they didn't want to give up creative control. And so we started brainstorming different ways that we could bring this to life. And NFTs just seemed like a really interesting opportunity to get the community engaged, and to sort of create this reverse financing mechanism for content. So Stoner Cats was our first experiment with that. And then our intention is to continue doing this more again and again and again with various properties. So that's kind of how we got here.
Yeah, it's so interesting because for years we've talked about NFTs as it's a way to engage communities, but then I think one of the things that sticks out to me in like the origin of all of this is the fact that you wanted to, Lisa, you guys wanted to do this show on cannabis and, be able to cover the content that you will, but it's hard to bring that to certain like mainstream distribution channels. And so that to me is like, that's one of the more compelling parts of your story.
Yeah, I mean, we really do believe that like our narratives are important, and we thought that this was such a one. I know it's called Stoner Cats and it's a lot of stoner humor, but we also have a main character who's suffering with early stages of Alzheimer's and is using cannabis to help alleviate some symptoms. So but we couldn't get Hollywood to see that side of it, and then on a secondary side, one being the creative front, but on a secondary side, we love creators and we love writers, and in traditional Hollywood development, we really see ideas getting blunted out, the edges getting cut off and becoming less, sometimes less compelling, a little more homogenized. And the idea of giving the creator to make the show they want to make is incredibly exciting. And for the creators to actually make real money on their show, as opposed to our Hollywood options that we had for this they really wouldn't have made much. And our creators got to really take home an actual paycheck, which was incredibly exciting.
This is the story of like what we're trying to build with Web3. When I think about like what Netflix was many years ago, it was like, wow, like they just removed all this friction for us to consume content. And then you saw that model sort of get replicated with all sorts of other media and see these like aggregators of media. And that's exciting, just because I think for me, thinking from the side of the creator, not that I haven't worked in Hollywood, but having friends, family, having worked in it, I'm like, wow, like this opens the door for so many more to be able to create and get it out there. But then what you're doing is like you've taken it a step further, because the NFTs, and in this case, not only are they fun, but they help to fund the series. They help to get people paid. And I mean, my experience, I think you should speak more to this, is just historically, despite what people think on the outside, a lot of people don't get paid well working in entertainment.
That's correct.
And you're spilling your heart and your guts into this. You're working a lifetime in it, and there's lots of middlemen. So this is such a cool like next step that you've taken.
And I mean, and that is particularly true in animation. Animators and animation directors and animation writers, they typically really don't get paid. I mean, even especially the animated writers, they're not part of any guild, or part of at least the Writers Guild. So they don't get the kind of sort of Hollywood money that everybody thinks that they would get. And we got to, by taking out a studio and letting our creators make their content, we got to take away all of that excess. And then this like real direct contact with the community, which I will absolutely admit, I didn't understand before we got into this. I didn't understand how valuable it would be, how fun it would be, to be able to like have conversations. I mean, literally yesterday I was in with the community thing and people got to pop in and ask questions and we got to talk. And that's been really exciting. And our creators, Ash, Sarah, and Chris, who have been working at like the top levels of animation for many years, for them to be able to have like their power, their control over their content with a direct line to their consumer. It's very, very exciting.
So are either of you starting to hear from others that, I mean, whether they're in Hollywood or maybe they're following more non-traditional ways to get their content out, like are others coming to you and are like, holy shit, this is such a great idea. Like, how do we do this?
Come look at my calendar. Yes. It has been what somebody, Mac Flavel, who we worked with on this, he said to me, he's like, oh, you didn't realize that this was the starting gun, not the finish line. And I was like, that's absolutely right. I did not realize that. And so from our launch on, we have been people have come in every single day. We have the number of amazing projects that are out there because, Hollywood is really challenging in terms of content. And also there's just a lot of content, and getting through some of that to get to from artist to consumer can be really, really challenging. And people are like, look at this project that I've had that I've loved forever. And there's amazing stuff. We actually have a thing that we want to bring to our community shortly, which is a project that we have known and loved for several years and have been waiting to find the right opportunity for. And we feel like this is another one of those right opportunities. And it's really exciting. And I think that the challenge on the Hollywood side is a lot of people have come to us with some ideas that have really felt like merchandising. They haven't felt like community building. They haven't felt like getting into a more decentralized studio model. And so we're not particularly interested in that side of it. And we can let them do that with somebody else. But the things that feel like real community building, really decentralized Hollywood, that's what we're trying to take into the next steps. And, we wish we could like push the wall all the way forward, but it's going to be a matter of baby steps for us to get there because we are moving a big machine, a big expensive machine.
Yeah, I mean, you've put skin in the game for so many that would have not had it otherwise with Stoner Cats. And, I think like one of the more like revolutionary parts of the NFT DeFi community is that by putting that skin in the game with so many folks, you create stronger communities. And, I end up communicating to a lot of teams that tokens are not about, in many cases, it's not about like a fundraising mechanism or whatever, trying to make a number go up and everybody hopefully gets rich. It is actually about creating like a team of evangelists, marketers, and so on. And so I cannot imagine the feedback, especially with animation, because I have young kids and I have Disney Plus and I've watched lots of documentaries on this. So I am an expert on animation. But no, I recognize there's like an intense amount of feedback that is necessary. So I can't imagine how valuable that is in the scope of this. One thing I kind of skipped over here is before we talk more about the longer term vision of Stoner Cats, can we back up on what is the utility of it now? Like someone buys a Stoner Cat, at this point they're sold out, so you have to go on OpenSea or some other secondary market. But once I buy one, what does that entitle me to?
The first utility is just access to the content, and so that's the primary utility today. But you do also get access to future content that we're going to be creating, and so the show that Lisa's talking about that's in the works. You'll be able to watch that content too. So in perpetuity, it gets you access to all the content that we're going to be releasing. And then the other utility is, you to participate in the content creation process. So our Ash, Sarah, and Chris, our creators, they're hosting, I think it's every week, they host creator calls where they can talk to the community and get feedback and advice and input on what they want to see in the next episode. So you get to participate in the content creation. And so those are, I think, the primary two utilities that we have today.
And we are doing, we have a contest for token holders. I did yesterday a panel to talk about how you pitch a TV show and what is a TV show and what do you need to have in place. And they'll have the opportunity to pitch each other the show that ultimately the top 3 from the community will be chosen to come and talk to me and pitch me their show and see if there's an opportunity there. And additionally, we're excited about bringing shows that are coming to us from the traditional Hollywood side to the community and saying, hey, would you respond to something like this? Do you want to be part of this experience, of this new creation? And so that's a huge utility that we think coming in really soon, that they'll get to see content before we even fully commit to see if it's something they want to be part of.
That's the other thing. It's like you have to be part of the DAO, and the DAO is going to make 3 new animated pieces of content, one a year for the next 3 years. And so you actually get to vote and participate and decide, hey, like I want to watch this show or I want to actually watch this show. And so you get to participate in like the content that we actually create.
It's so cool. It's like it's definitely like you're checking off all the boxes of like fantasies I've had about like, okay, like if we can take the fundamentals of like what's working in DeFi with all of these like really strict financial use cases and apply it to more creative avenues, I mean, we just make a better world. One of the things that really stands out to me about what you've done is you've opened up another channel too for people to be able to fund stories that they think should be told, which, I mean, I'm sure Lisa or Maaria, you could probably go on and on with me about like historically how challenging that is to get those stories out, without being beholden to a small group of investors and production companies.
Well, we have to be really aware that, the major studios, they have big corporate partners, and they
Right.
have to listen to the million angry people out there who are angry about something.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
this takes that away. So you can't push a little further. And, Hollywood is typically pretty left. And I think that there's an opportunity for more diverse voices, more emerging talents to be able to get straight from artist to audience. And that is so exciting. And we're really hearing from a lot of much younger people, which has been awesome. And we want to hear their voices. And in Hollywood, people only listen once you get to a certain level. And it's really hard to get to that level. So to be able to kind of clear some of that chaff and be able to walk right to the audience is exciting.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think about like if someone is bold enough to put money behind a story, to back it, to have it created, I mean, that's cool. That's just like, that's a better world to live in, and to see that happen. And I think this is one of the most obvious examples to date of how NFTs are being used to enable this. Maybe you could talk then a bit about the longer term vision for Stoner Cats. Like what else is yet to come? Any milestones you can share that we can look forward to?
So the longer term, what we find really interesting and fascinating about crypto just across the entire ecosystem is how your identity and your community and the communities that you participate in become almost like revenue generating opportunities for you. So one of the things that we're excited about is the idea of NFTs being used as access tokens to watch content. And so that's what unlocks the content that you want to watch. And you can imagine a world where people have different NFTs for Stoner Cats, for Schitt's Creek, for Friends, for Seinfeld, or whatever it is, and that's your token to watch the content. And then once you have a portfolio of these NFTs, what you can actually do is create sort of like your own digital box office, where you can sell tickets, or you can rent, or you can fractionalize your tokens and have other people participate in the shows that you kind of curated for them. And so you imagine a world where instead of like going to Netflix.com or going to CNN or whatever it is, you can actually go to the Maaria channel or the DeFi Dad channel and like actually watch the content that you've curated. And so in a way, it's an opportunity for people to leverage their own curation and identity in a really, really interesting way.
One follow-up to this is, so as excited as I am about, NFTs, and as much as I could talk about how this like enables all this like new access to a community to back creative projects. One of the issues we've dealt with is high network fees or high gas fees on Ethereum. I'm curious, like how have you all thought about this in the scope of Stoner Cats, and any ideas you can share for how we solve for this in the future?
Yeah, I mean, that was a big issue. Out of gas errors, when people were buying through MetaMask. MetaMask puts a gas estimate. If it's even 1% below what you actually need, you get an out of gas error. And so we had that issue with Stoner Cats. We ended up out of our own pockets making those people whole again, because we thought it was a really important thing to do, and an important something that we wanted to show that the community, like, hey, we hear you, we see you, we want you to continue supporting us, all that good stuff. But one thing that I think the ecosystem really needs is just standardization, right? So standardization around, hey, what are best practices here? A 30% gas buffer, every single project should have that. And there's no real consensus on that today. I think there's folks, I know Jimmy at Nifty 42, he's thinking about doing something like this with the community, where we can create standard just protocols and procedures for how we deal with those gas issues, and how we structure smart contracts so people don't get wrecked.
No, absolutely. I had one other follow-up here for you, Lisa. I'm curious, as you are, you were mentioning your calendar is crazy busy now with just, new projects that are wanting to, I think, follow like some of the best practices that have been set by Stoner Cats, which it's probably the first time anyone in the world has ever used best practices and Stoner Cats in the same sentence. But what's some of the light bulb moments for the folks you're talking with who are like new to the NFT space? I'm always thinking about like, what can we communicate that will help people go from what is this ridiculous shit to, oh, like, wow, this is the future. This is really cool. I get it.
I mean, so much of it is, I think it's twofold with the people who I'm talking to. And by the way, my calendar went from talking about like traditional movies and television to suddenly talking about this all day long. So, I mean, it can get busier, just shifted. But what the light bulbs that I'm seeing are from the kind of agent's side, which is in the agent manager side, is the financials for the creators. Right. When they see that, like, I mean, that is night and day from what creators are typically dealing with, unless they're the highest level people. So that's really exciting. The idea that they could take their emerging talent who have good ideas and go straight to consumer and not have to try to sell an emerging talent to a studio, which is really hard to prove that emerging talent needs to kind of prove themselves before a studio will trust them. And we get to do that. And then the huge one is talking about how we can like crowdsource whether or not we do a thing. We can know before we spend a lot of money on making it, if people are going to want to see it. And that like direct community engagement, the idea that you can allow your community to become, to proselytize for you out there and to be part of it and to engage. I mean, that part, when I watch people, I was on a call yesterday where I said something about the community, and I watched long-term agent manages huge people just go like literally light bulb. Like you could see the light bulb over his head. That's the thing. And for me too, that was the thing. The combination of community and artists getting to make their art. Those are the two.
What about the downside? What sort of pushback do you see, or maybe fears of like, is this going to like make my job obsolete? Certain people, I'm wondering who are worried about this.
I haven't said it out loud yet, but I'm sure there's a lot of concerns there. I mean, our big downside and our big challenge, particularly with Stoner Cats, and I think we've gotten through a lot of it, was these are traditional people who have very large traditional relationships in Hollywood, who don't want to bite that hand at all, and appreciate that. And we have to do a lot of education. It was many phone calls with many reps, many actors to talk about like, what does this really look like for you guys? And I mean, and some people who had never had a crypto wallet. So it was just, I mean, real basics that we'd have to go into. There's an education point of view. And then as we start moving over, we know that there's a community desire for license and commercial rights to their NFT. That is so counter to anything that Hollywood's ever experienced. So it's that's a big step that we are working on talking through with people. And we'll see if we ever get there. I don't know if we'll get there. I don't think we'll get there with Stoner Cats. But with future projects, if we can, we will. And even one of our attorneys, I said something the other day, and he's like, "Wow, you've come so far," because I was where they were just a few months ago.
Yeah, I think my takeaway when I'm trying to like describe DeFi or NFTs to folks that are new to this space is, this is not like a zero-sum game. This is actually a huge value creation. It's probably the largest revolution of value creation you'll see in our lifetime, like since the internet. It's insane, because I think a few years ago I thought, yeah, like it's possible that this is all going to eclipse what we saw with just the coming of the internet. But I think it's clear as day now that you can basically put financial building blocks behind anything. And at the end of the day, like money is a really powerful way to coordinate people. And so you're removing all these friction points, and you're allowing anyone, whether they're a writer in Hollywood or, someone who's trading penny stocks from home. Like at the end of the day, you all have access to the same sorts of tools.
Mm-hmm. Or even like a venture capitalist, right? So we invested in Syndicate DAO, and Syndicate DAO is essentially coming for the venture capitalist lunch, right? Like they make it really easy for you to create investment groups, and they do all the legal, the back end. I mean, that's venture capital, like in our structure, is going to become obsolete. But
I look forward to that, though. Right, Maaria. That's like
100%.
we joke around about that. My team at Fourth Revolution Capital, we joke around that like we're actually investing in what would make the way we're structured obsolete, but it's for good reason. Like anyone should be able to invest any small amount of money, whether it's to fund a season of Stoner Cats or whether it's the next like huge, DEX on Ethereum. Like we want to enable anyone to be able to benefit from that upside. And the truth is right now, the way that, at least our society is constructed is you have to basically be rich to make money. And it's absolutely bullshit. Like I come from a very middle class background, which is probably lower middle class. I just like when you're middle class, you think you're doing really well. At least years ago, we used to think we were doing well. And so like I think a lot of the passion comes from having seen firsthand that like you just don't have access to as much opportunity to benefit from the upside. And meanwhile, you look at others getting that opportunity and you say, I mean, there's truly something to just be inherited. There's so much opportunity. And anyways, I go on and on about that. Maaria, follow up though to just like the whole ecosystem now of NFTs and DeFi. With Sound Ventures, you're investing in both, but I'm curious, do you feel either of these is a bridge to bring more people into the crypto community? Like, I guess, what are you more, if you have to be more bullish on one or the other, is it DeFi or NFTs or?
So yeah. I love NFTs. And the one thing that I love, so I also love DeFi, right? So I participate in both ecosystems personally. DeFi though, unless you have a financial background or like you take the time to actually go in and do your research and understand how like yield farming works, or whatever it is, it's really, really tough to get into. But NFTs, like art and art is something that anyone can understand, and anyone can who wants to has a taste, and so it's easy for them to participate. So I actually think NFTs are great for getting new people into the ecosystem because it's something that they can easily understand. Like Lisa didn't know 6 months ago, 8 months ago, no idea what NFTs were.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Now she has her MetaMask wallet. She's buying NFTs. She can participate in the ecosystem. She doesn't need to know about yield farming or token swapping or anything like that. It's such a good way to bring people in.
Yeah, it's a lot of language. There's, and this is true of, I mean, most like fields have a special sort of language. Like I have a background in chemistry, and that's part of the reason I got drawn to crypto is because I recognize like, wow, like this is complex, but it doesn't need to be so complex. It just seems like we all enjoy using big words and sounding really smart and special. And at the end of the day, a lot of that's the thing about NFTs for me that is just, it's the most lovely part of the story is it's just fun. It's easy. Like look at these pictures of penguins and lions and punks and whatever else and stoner cats, and you're like, all right, like what's the purpose of this? I don't know. I mean, they're just fun. Like that's the purpose of it. Why are they going for so much money? Because someone else is willing to pay that much money for it. I mean, that's really it. With what you all are doing though, I think it takes us back to this idea of anyone should be able to put their money into whatever they want. And in this case, like funding creators is it's just such a compelling story to tell. I think it's easier than telling people about like the minimums required to be an accredited investor. Like those are really frustrating, but you do have to kind of go down like a rabbit hole of understanding, some of like historical finance. With this, it's just like, hey, if you think an idea is cool, you have a chance to crowdfund it. Actually, maybe crowdfunding is probably a better word for it. Lisa, anything else from the Hollywood side that you think anything else that can be improved in the short term with what you guys are doing with Stoner Cats or just NFTs in general that will help like move the needle, get that many more in Hollywood to have the light bulb moment and start using NFTs?
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely like a rising tides sort of thing, which is the more people who do it, the more successful projects there are, the more failure, projects that are failures there are. We learn from that, and we can start seeing like a more systematic systems in place to help ease it through. And we feel like we did a huge amount. I mean, we created contracts that never existed before, for talent and for vendors and for things that, Hollywood side people. So we feel like we put a ton of systems in place that make it a lot easier. Our jobs on our next projects would be much easier on the side. But I think that's a lot of it is just being able to show the path through. And we had to a little bit make up the path, and we made some mistakes and we did some things that were great. And we learned from that, and we'll try to continue to forge that path forward. But I think we need more of us doing this.
And then, Maaria, maybe we can end on this then. What else are you all thinking about at Sound Ventures in terms of improving engagement through NFTs, or I guess like what else is investable? If you can share any of the theses you have there about the NFT space, like I've had some frustration with the roulette of just minting NFTs. Like, you go in, you pay however much ETH, and if it's not an Avastar, if anyone's not familiar, Avastars, you actually scroll and it keeps showing you random NFTs. So you can pick. There is like I would argue there's a skill to that. There's a clear skill to picking what you think others will like. But sometimes we go in and we just mint and you get whatever you get, and that's the end of it. So anyways, how do you all think about what's investable in the NFT space at Sound Ventures?
Yeah, I mean, the ecosystem is so big. So you have your marketplaces like OpenSea, Super Rare, Mintable. You have some really interesting like DeFi applications. So NiftyFi, where you can actually use your NFTs as collateral. So there's like a really interesting bridge between DeFi and NFTs.
Right.
That's a vertical that we're really interested in. Platforms that enable this. So we worked with Big Head Studios on this project. That's back to Flavel's company. They're helping create new NFT projects and helping launch them. They're building communities around it. We're also investors in Jim McNelson's company, Nifty 42. They've been around for a very long time. They're the ones behind Avastars, and we love like how they're enabling new projects to come to life. The other area that I think is super interesting. So one of the challenges that we've had at Stoner Cats is just the communication layer, right? So how do you engage the community? How do you get the messages out there? Because everyone is in like disparate, different places. So,
yeah.
You have some people on Twitter, you have some people on Discord, you have some people in email channels, and there's no one place where you can actually communicate with all of your token holders in the central location. So we actually recently invested in a company called XMTP. The founder's Matt Galligan. What they're doing is they're basically building a standard messaging protocol in crypto. And so the idea is like SMTP was created 40 years ago in 1981. And so this is now the modern Web3 version. And you can imagine a world where, there's no decentralized way to message wallets today or to communicate with wallets, which is it seems like such a simple thing that you should be able to do, but for some reason we're not able to do it. And so what XMTP is doing is, building that standard protocol layer. And so you can actually communicate with all of your token holders, or you can do specific targeting to different wallets. You can streamline across all of your channels. You can imagine a world where if you do a push notification to Twitter, you can actually also do a push notification to Discord or to your email or your Telegram, whatever it might be. And so that to me feels like it was one of the big missing pieces in this ecosystem, is just how do you engage your community? How do you centralize it? How do you message wallets, even on a simple level? And so that's one that we're really, really excited about.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Communication is a huge challenge right now in the space. Yeah, we were talking before this about just like, there's all this money at stake in different wallets, and yet it's impossible. Well, it's not impossible, but it's not easy to get in touch with people without going through indirect channels. So very excited for this.
even Zapper, I mean, I was talking to Seb about this, and Seb is actually also investing in the company. So he, like, when there was I think it was an exploit, right, on Zapper, where you had to move some funds to a different account, and you had to communicate that to the token holders or to the people who were affected, but there was no way to actually reach them, right? Like, you can go to Twitter, you can go to Discord, you can try to reach them however you want, but it's not easy. And so they actually he told me that they ended up creating a Zapper Mail to address that issue. It's like, hey, we need a way to just get a message out to people when their funds are at risk, or get them the notifications that they need. And it's such a simple concept, but it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also too, if folks are looking for this, the Ethereum push notification service is going to be going live soon. And so similar as a protocol, I think there are some differences here, but regardless, the point is, like, communication is really important, that we improve that for Web3, and especially too with all these different blockchains and L2s on Ethereum that are going live. Like, that's going to be really exciting to see more come to L2, including this communication layer.
And one thing with L2s are so fascinating. Yeah. With the challenge with L2s though is that the process to, you buy the whole end-to-end process of getting your cryptocurrency converted into an L2 and actually being able to interact with it is still really hard. Like, if you want to use Matic, you have to go through a process of adding Matic to your MetaMask wallet, then convert your tokens. And when we're thinking about Stoner Cats, we want this to become a way to bring new people in, to introduce new people into the ecosystem. The more friction that we add in that process, the harder it's going to be. And so that's something that we're thinking a lot about. It's just like, how do we actually build, like, we love L2 because of, how much more efficient it is, but what does that do to the audience?
Yeah, no. Makes sense. I know I've struggled actually with L2s and other blockchains. When you're bridging, you're like, okay, is what I got what I intended to get? Like, for example, if you move wrapped ether from Ethereum to Polygon, you end up with something that is not used. But if you move ether through the Zapper bridge, you end up getting what is the most liquid form of ether on Polygon. And so that's, I can't tell you how many people I had spoken with while at Zapper that were like, hold on, I just moved WETH over because it says WETH on Aave Polygon market. And then you got to tell them they got to move it back. And so these are just, as far as we've come, like, there's so much farther to go in making the user experience better. And I think actually Zapper is a good example, of course, of one that's like really improved that. I'm thinking we should probably end on just an easier, fun question here. Aside from Stoner Cats, what's your favorite NFT project? And I'd love to hear from both of you on this. Like, what other projects have gotten your attention? So we're not speaking to financial advice here. Reminder to everyone, this is not financial advice, blah, 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 blah. But more like, what's intriguing to you? What's one of the better communities that you've been able to engage with?
Well, excuse me. Maaria is going to be able to answer this much better than I will, because she's been doing this a lot longer. But I'm a huge World of Women fan. We've spoken to them. We think the art is absolutely beautiful. And because we are all kind of women now in the blockchain, we're so excited to be able to support other female artists and female projects. So that's one that for me is like tops. But Maaria, she knows everything.
Very cool. Yeah, Maaria, what are you thinking?
Okay, so there's a lot of projects that I love. I always I love the punks, love Bored Apes, and I loved what they did with the Mutant Ape Yacht Club on Saturday. That was just brilliant and so interesting. Art Blocks, I'm a fan there. And then some of my favorites right now, from a community perspective, I love Sup Ducks. What Frankie's done with that community is just incredible. They have an entire channel that's just for people to write sup. And it's just really funny and really cute, and they're really engaged. And he's doing a ton of stuff just to continue to build out that property around the ducks. And then there was actually one that I found the other day that I really liked. I am not a part of the Discord community, but I just really like the art. So I don't know, have you guys ever seen the Surgs?
No, I haven't.
SERGS. Oh my God,
No, that's I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, just look it up on OpenSea. It's just like a really funny, like they're funny. It's just, images of people, and they're very basic and they're just really cute. And I like that a lot. And then loot, I have no idea what's happening.
Loot, I was literally just going to say loot. And I used to play a lot of World of Warcraft, so I looked at loot and was like, all right, I'm in. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I know, right? That's been crazy. Another project that a lot of people are excited for, but then I think if you've been sitting on the outskirts of NFTs, like now your mind is like completely melted. You're like, hold on, we were trading like cards before of like animals, and now what are these people doing? And like, I mean, as much as I think I think the Bitcoin maxis just for some reason will never be able to wrap their heads around what's going on. I love to think how confused they are now. They're trading text now. They're trading text and they're making money off of it. But for what it's worth too, I haven't touched loot, so I'm not trying to promote loot here, but I do think it's a cool idea too.
What I was thinking this morning about, like, if the community can decide on, like, they can work together on what these things then mean, what value they have. I mean, all of it. I just think I love it. Yeah.
End of day, all of this is about letting people decide what they think something is worth and being able to easily transfer it. Because I think one of the things we've been talking a lot about at Fourth Revolution Capital is, the future is we're probably going to spend a lot of time in virtual reality, probably more of our life, whether that sounds like a Black Mirror episode or not. And I think at that point in time, people will obviously need a financial construct. And so a lot of what's being built today, I think it can replace what we use with like the banking system. And in this case, like the funding mechanisms behind things like Hollywood films. But when we choose a digital life further into the future, this stuff is going to make that much more sense. You're going to be able to, this will be like a very urgent thing that you need for you to be able to continue to coordinate in that digital life. But Maaria, Lisa, anything else you wanted to share before we go?
No, this has been super fun.
I'll say here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. And just a reminder, everyone, to follow Stoner Cats TV on Twitter. Make sure you check out stonercats.com. Subscribe at DeFiDad.com if you enjoyed this and you want to watch future episodes. And I'm just going to end the broadcast. We'll be in a green room. So bye, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for your time, Lisa and Maaria.
Thank you.